Hey everybody, Phil/Polygon here. Welcome to part 4 in Clerical Alliance, our playthrough of Dark Souls 3, where we're attempting to put together a PvP character from scratch. Woo, fast intro. Let's gear up in the keep. Alright, context. So picking up hot on the heels of the last one, we have just defeated the Crystal Sage with a little assist from Aegon of Karim. Well, maybe air quote, assist from Aegon. And through the Road of Sacrifices, we took a pretty straightforward path that led us right to the boss. In the last one, I was talking a little bit about how we left a lot of stuff on the table. There are still a lot of sparklies out there in the bog that we did not bother picking up. I was also talking about how this level branches in two directions, both choices for development and in literal paths we can go. Good lord, the fall hurt more than I thought, and we got poked. It almost came to an untimely end before it even got started, but we're okay. And we came down for the shard. So we followed the path that led us towards the Cathedral and the boss, picking up items that were convenient along the way, knowing full well that we were going to circle back through, make another pass on the Road of Sacrifices, and head towards the keep. So this time, we're going to hit a lot of parts of the level that we just completely ignored prior. I feel like that's a little bit of an efficiency trick that I've picked up, and one of the focuses of this playthrough is to try to be as efficient as possible. So, rather than run around and try and pick up everything in one pass, we knew we were going to have to come through here a couple of times. Might as well just get stuff that's on the way. There's nothing that we let go and are coming back for later that was super critical. Stuff we want, but nothing that's going to make or break us. Now, in running through here, I always try and hug that rock outcropping to the crab's left, the giant crab's left, because that does not trigger the invasion, the NPC invasion by Yellowfinger Heisel. If we were to venture out into the swamp and take a little bit more direct path, she'd show up. It'd just be something to contend with. We don't really have a need for anything that she has. We're not going to use her pick. We don't need the douche headgear. We don't need a fancy bow gesture. If you want that, you can take her out, join up with the Fingers of Rosaria, summon her in, and she'll teach you to bow all lady-like. But we'll just deal with the exiles. I was always kind of curious about Yellowfinger Heisel, though. The term Yellowfinger. I'm wondering if that's a play, sort of a tongue-in-cheek joke by the developers based on the hues that you get when you invade. If you invade as a warrior of sunlight, for example, with the red eye orb, you'll have a little bit of a yellow hue, that gold from the warrior of sunlight phantom color. Heisel is all about camaraderie within the Fingers. You learn that from Leonhard later on when he's talking about her silly ideas towards Fingers of Rosaria working together. And if you're a finger, she will put her white summon sign down and come in and help you and actually teach you the bow. So I'm wondering if that's almost like a condescending term of endearment. Maybe some hybrid of the two where, yeah, she's an invader, but she still believes in teamwork like a sunbro, so she's a yellow finger. I don't know. Maybe. Maybe it means nothing. Maybe it's something that the writers just thought sounded cool when they were coming up with names for their NPC invaders. But everything in this game is so purposefully placed. Everything is so subtle in the storytelling of Dark Souls and blah, blah, blah. And it's up to us as lore enthusiasts to puzzle out what everything truly is. I always thought Yellowfinger sounded odd and figured it had some meaning. So in my head, that's what I've attributed to it. I always try and kite these exile knights one at a time too, just as I did. They can be a little bit tricky if you let them come at you simultaneously. They drop a large club and an exile greatsword. Nice weapons, but absolutely no place in this build. No thrusting attacks on either of those things. But we do have to steamroll them to get to the keep. We also let go a pyromancy tome, still out there in the bog. We're not going to mess with pyromancies. We did not kill the crab to get the lingering dragon crest ring. That could be useful for this build, especially with buffs, but it's not one of the rings that I had planned on using in my slots, so I'm going to let it go. Maybe I'll pick it up later, but right now, don't really need it. Also let the coal go, the Farron coal, which unlocks sharp, heavy, and refined infusions on your weapon. There's a little black knight guarding a hallway / alcove where that thing is sitting. But later on in the keep, pretty deep in the keep towards the end. There's a shortcut you can unlock that spits you out right in that area. We'll pick it up then. We are not champing at the bit. We do not have the stats to benefit from any of the stat scaling infusions. And as we are right now, I'm pretty happy with my +3 raw war pick. So while I was blubbering on, we have in fact reached the keep. Slogging through the swamp. There's a couple of things that we want to grab here. I will say we are not going to clear the keep. We are not going to take on the Abyss Watchers. There's a couple of story reasons to that I'll talk about down the way. But we did want to come in here for some items. There's an Estus shard. There's a Undead Bone shard. So good upgrades for our flask. We'll snag our first offensive miracle as well. A lightning spear. I talked about being prepared for that a little bit in the last one. We're also going to snag some ashes that'll advance some of the quest lines that we need to follow for this character. And also, Farron Keep is just a pain in the ass. So it's kind of nice to come through here, light a couple of those ceremonial fires, so that when we do come through here with the intention of clearing it out, we don't have to do quite so much sloshing around in the poisonous muck. So from the bonfire, we took the left path, as far away from the slow-moving portion of the swamp and basilisks as possible. That leads us towards all those items that I called out. It leads us to 2 fires pretty conveniently. It lets us light a bonfire a little bit deeper inside Farron Keep. Pretty convenient for warping to later. It'll lead us to a talisman. It'll lead us to a tower where we can climb and climb and climb and climb and get to the Watchdogs of Farron Covenant. Don't have any interest with that. But there's a bonfire up there that's convenient. That actually puts us back to a second portion of the High Wall of Lothric. And then along the way, there's a good number of Titanite shards just lying out in the swamp as well. You can see me making little deviations from the safer island path to go snag some of those. Just go out into the poisonous reaches to grab some shards. Our plan for that, even though our war pick is at +3, in the very near future, we'll be able to procure a talisman that we will want to use. Right now we've got our default chime, haven't upgraded it, haven't done anything, because our healing does flat HP back. Force, you know, we haven't really used it that much. We haven't done a lot with miracles, so fuck the talisman at this point. That's about to change, and we want shards to do some upgrading. Just a little bit ago, we extinguished our first candle as well. Gaining entrance to the keep requires some ceremony. I've never really understood that. It seems like you would do the opposite, right? It seems like you should try and light the candles to gain entrance to the Abyss Watchers, right? Because they're tasked with fighting the Abyss. They're trying to make the darkness recede. How do you make darkness recede? Throw on some light. I don't know, maybe you're extinguishing them to wreathe yourself in darkness. You're saying, no, I embrace it. I'm ready to take on the Abyss. Come for me, darkness. I will fend you off. I have no idea. If anybody's seen anything on that, let me know. Kind of curious. It seems like you should have to light the candles versus extinguish them. And now I realize we're kind of blazing over a lot of this stuff. I'm not really talking to what's happening on screen because we're taking a pretty quick and dirty route through this first portion of the keep. Once you kind of know the layout of this area, where the fires are, once you kind of know enemy placements, once you kind of know which items out in the swamp you should go after versus which ones you should just let lie there to reduce your poison risk, you can actually make pretty quick work of this place. We also have the benefit of being a faith character. In the swamp itself, there's not a lot of faith stuff. We don't have to go get scrolls. Orbeck wouldn't even talk to us, so we don't have to fulfill any promises to that guy. We did pick up that Sage's Coal back where we took out the Dark Wraith. I was kind of blah blah blahing over the top of that. That was pretty important to us because that unlocks the Blessed Infusion path. I'm not sure what I'm gonna bless yet, but I'm curious to play around with it. It significantly decreases base damage and it scales okay with your faith stat. But the cool thing about that path is that it's regenerative. If you have a blessed weapon on hand, your HP will slowly, ever so slowly, tick, tick, tick up over time. But that can make a difference. Now, if you're a sorcerer or a caster build, you're going to have to spend a lot more time out in the sludge. There are actually 2 scrolls here for you to procure. The Sage's Scroll and the Golden Scroll. So you can unlock some of Logan's spells. Calling back to Dark Souls 1. Big Hat Logan. And also some spells from Ulasil that deal with illusion. Both of those things are in some more dangerous areas of the swamp. One trick, light a bonfire here. It'll be nice to warp to later because it puts you right in front of the doors that you ultimately unlock by extinguishing, so I don't know why, the flames. But yeah, one little trick I'm sure a lot of people have seen before is equipping a dagger and quick stepping. Even if you don't have the stats to use it, you can use the quick step weapon art to traverse the swamp a lot more quickly, especially in those areas where it kind of halves your movement speed. You can't run, you fat roll. If you got a dagger on you, you can just quick all the way through it. It gets a little tricky because you have to have it in your main hand and two-hand it in order to access the thing, unless you have a shield on for weapon arts and blah, 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 blah. But it's not terribly effective against a lot of the basilisks that are going to be coming at you either. So a lot of times you'll have to switch out to another weapon, then switch back to your dagger to move, then switch out to another weapon. It can be kind of a pain in the ass, just like freezes. Pause for a second, man. This fucking game, even with my new video card, even with a significantly overpowered CPU and tons of RAM, I still get stutters in this game. This game seems so badly optimized. Do you guys get those as well? They seem to be so random. Every now and again, I will just get these half-second to 1.5-second freezes where things lock up. It's not lag because it's not like stuff is moving behind the scenes. It's just everything stops for that point of time. In boss fights, it is devastating because it totally shits on any kind of rhythm you have in identifying patterns. Let me know. Are you guys experiencing that too? Stupid From and their PC ports. All right, let's climb. And climb. And as we continue to climb, I'll apologize because I know whining about hardware issues or performance issues is not necessarily relevant to putting together a PvP character from scratch. But at the outset of this thing, I said we would also be talking about lore and theories and fun facts about environments, which this episode has been almost nothing but, and also impressions of the game. Here's an impression of the game. When it comes to performance, bad. I've actually seen a ton of posts on this issue. I've looked at a lot of the forums, and it seems like a lot of people are experiencing this. I've done all the tricks. It helps, but it doesn't eliminate it altogether. I don't know. Let's kill some lizards and get back to the task at hand. Now up here atop that lengthy ladder, it's actually a pretty good little vantage point. If you look out, you can see a lot of the fires still burning. If you're not familiar quite where those ceremonial flames are, you can always come up here, survey the area, and it'll give you a general direction of stuff that you need to go and extinguish. You can also come up here and join with the Watchdogs of Farron. We saw the emaciated old wolf just a second ago. The Watchdogs of Farron, if you're playing online, they'll come in and invade anybody that's in this area if you haven't killed the boss. Just like the Forest Hunters in Dark Souls 1, just like the Bell Keepers in Dark Souls 2. They can actually come and get you in parts of the Crucifixion Woods as well, and the Road of Sacrifices. So they've got a pretty long grasp. We also busted through an illusory wall to grab the Dream Chaser's ashes. Those will allow us to advance Cirrus of the Sunless Realms storyline. We've pretty much got all we really need from her. We just needed the gesture so we can join up with the Dark Moon Blades later. But following her questline to completion does give us a blessed Mailbreaker. It's pokey, and it's blessed, so it scales with faith. I'll take it for free. Okay. We can get a talisman following her questline to completion, but it doesn't really benefit us because it scales with intelligence. The Sunless Talisman scales with intelligence. It's kind of a dark talisman, or it can be useful in some hybrid builds too. If you're doing like a faith intelligence crossover, that can be pretty useful. We probably won't mess with it, but we are going to mess with the Stray Demon, the Rock Stray Demon, who has collapsible legs. Man, I love fighting this guy and making him crush under his own weight. If you're running around underneath him, just hacking away at his legs instead of his belly, they will get so weakened that they can no longer support his weight, and they'll crumple, and he'll just become this little stump of an enemy. He can still knock the crap out of you, don't get me wrong, but it's just hilarious. I love doing stuff like that. What we really came up here for, not the Stray Demon soul or soul of a demon or whatever it is. We don't need any boulder heave, most ridiculous thing in the entire game. We came up here for the Sunlight Spear, our first offensive miracle. We definitely want that. We also came up here to bother with a couple of crystal lizards. There's two of them, three of them actually, but two of them just on the other side of this gate where we're taking the little side path. Drop large shards. We're going to be able to snag two of those, which will allow us to ascend something, probably a raw war pick, up to +4 and get into the next upgrade tier. That'll serve us pretty well, and we'll be able to grab 2 more large shards once we hit the Cathedral of the Deep by killing those giants. That'll allow us to ascend something else to +4. In our case, it'll be a talisman. Once we finally get our canvas talisman, talk about that when it happens, we got enough small shards to upgrade it to +3. We'll get 2 extra large shards, take it to +4, and then we'll have a weapon and a talisman both at +4. Generally, as far as upgrades, if I'm playing a character that has a bi-directional attack, a 2-pronged attack, either a weapon, maybe a main and a secondary one, maybe a sword and a bow, or a weapon and a catalyst, or a weapon and a pyro glove, whatever it might be, I usually like to keep those in lockstep. I'll talk about that in a second. But with this last lizard, he can be a little tricky to get because he's going to bolt directly into that dude with the lantern. Just like those lantern holders on the high wall, they can scream and alert all of the sleeping enemies to your presence. That can be a little bit hairy here. You got spear guys, you got hollow thieves, you got crossbow guys. I think there's even a great axe, large hollow down there. They can all chase you up the stairs, just kind of dogpile you. So a lot of times I will just ignore that lizard and head straight for the lantern guy. Take him out, clear things a little bit, make sure it settles down, and then do the old quit and reload trick. My, what a convenient place to respawn. Hello, lizard. Goodbye, lizard. Thanks for the gem. But yeah, regarding upgrades, the reason I like to keep them kind of at the same level, I don't want anything to go too far ahead. Dark Souls 3's matchmaking is based on levels, as we all know, your soul level. But it's also taking into account your highest upgraded weapon that you have in your possession. Could be in storage, could be on your person, could be anywhere. Maybe you're not even using it or have it equipped. The highest thing that you've upgraded is also taken into account when you're being matched up. It works as it can go 2 over and 2 under. So with a +4 weapon, we can run into dudes with +6 weapons, or we can run into dudes with +2 weapons. I like to keep my 2 items fairly balanced so that one is not far out in front of the other. If we were to take our war pick to +7, for example, and our talisman was still at +3, we'd be fairly imbalanced in terms of the numbers we're putting out. We might be able to hit hard, but our miracles would be underpowered. We also don't want any piece of gear to be too far out ahead of the area where we are. Otherwise, we wouldn't get matched up. We still have some co-oping to do to farm sunlight metals. We still have some summoning to do as a blue to farm proofs of Concord kept because we want a Dark Moon blade. If we had one ridiculously powerful weapon, a +10 weapon, we probably wouldn't be able to get co-op at the Deacons of the Deep because you cannot have that at that point in the game. Well, without a crap ton of work. That about does it for Farron Keep. We'll definitely be back that way. We've got to clear it out as a required area of the game. We've got to kill the Abyss Watchers. But for now, all we wanted to do was venture in there, grab some gear, take a little bit of a head start as far as extinguishing those flames so it's not so much of a pain down the way. And now we are going for the Cathedral. We're about due for another return to Firelink Shrine as well. We got some good souls in our counter. We've got a lot of upgrade materials to boost our flask. But there's one more item, just thinking of efficiency, that we need to snag so that we can go back. We can do all kinds of things all at once. Just minimize the hopscotching around. Said item is the Paladin's Ashes. We'll snag those just a little bit up the road near the first bonfire. We'll be able to hand those back to the Shrine Handmaid, and that'll unlock a couple of great things. One, the Canvas Talisman. We're going to use that until our faith gets to about 50. So we'll be on that Canvas Talisman for a while. Does good spell buff damage. It also has a fantastic weapon art that boosts poise when you cast it. If you use that talisman's weapon art, it'll cast whatever miracle you've got queued up with increased poise. A lot of these faith miracles, the lightning spear, for example, lightning stake especially, do max damage at point blank range. They're almost like our thrusting weapons in that if you get counter hits with them, it puts up the biggest numbers. We don't have a ton of poise at this point, and we're not going to really pump a lot of stuff into Vitality to carry heavy armor either. So that can be a big boost. The Paladin's Ashes also unlock shards from the Shrine Handmaid, so we'll be able to buy Titanite shards. We won't have to worry about farming those anymore. We just have to worry about souls. Oh, you know what? That was totally a lie. Don't listen to me. The Dream Chaser's Ashes unlock shards. I get those confused because I always pick them up in the same run, just as we did We fired up the bonfire, though, just as a convenient little checkpoint. The first of the Cathedral of the Deep. We can warp back to it later. Convenient little checkpoint, as is the nature of bonfires. All bonfires are convenient little checkpoints. Well, actually, don't listen to me there either. Not all of them. Not that one at the beginning of the archives, immediately after the Dragon Slayer armor. Ridiculous. We've got to take out this little fallen knight. We're in that same armor set that we just picked up in the Road of Sacrifices. We did swap out to the trousers. The Fallen Knight pantaloons are pretty slick pieces of armor. They've got decent poise, but they've got a really nice weight to defense ratio. And they're black, so they match our Firekeeper robe. We'll rock that for a little bit yet to come. But I always struggle with this guy. I don't know. Maybe it's just because he's a straight sword user, and you know, straight sword users are the world's biggest bitches. Maybe this guy's no exception. But he's pretty quick on the draw with his little backstep punishes, and I fall for that a couple of times. Not anything to worry about, but he burned up a good deal of Estus chugs. Thanks, Fallen Knight. Luckily, your bandit compatriot is not nearly as challenging. Doing battle with the buddy, but kind of thinking about those Falling Knights. I'm a little curious about those guys, because the item description for each piece in that set reads something like, you know, armor of an order of knights that disbanded and died. Came to untimely deaths, I think it says. Is that a reference to something we've seen before in Dark Souls 1 or 2? I haven't been able to piece that together. This order of knights that is now fallen. You know, is that something like the Balder Knights or the Knights of Karim or the Lion Knights in Dark Souls 2? I know it's obviously not any of those things, but is it an order of knights that we've seen before and this is a reference to it? Looking at the armor itself, underneath the raggedy torn clothes, it looks almost like the Elite Knight set from Dark Souls 1 or Dark Souls 2, even though it's black. So I'm not sure. Maybe black has to do with the fact that they're fallen. I don't know. If you have any insight on that, hit me up. Grab one last shard from the forest, and now we are back to Firelink. We're going to do some upgrading. We're going to do some quest advancing. We're going to do some talisman purchasing. All kinds of things to do because we've got a whole bunch queued up. First thing I'm going to do is burn my undead bone shard. I always forget to burn my undead bone shards at this bonfire. I'll go off and bomb around Firelink and do everything I need to do, and then I'll go sit back down and immediately warp to wherever it is, and then think, oh my god, I've got 3 undead bone shards in my inventory that I have forgot to use. Why is my Estus only +1? It should be +3. It should be +4. So I always just kind of sit down and burn it first thing. You could even see it. I had like a little memory of, oh, don't forget to burn your bone shard. But we gave the ashes to the Shrine Maiden. We picked up our talisman. We're going to go do some upgrading with those large shards that we got. Kick up our pickaxe. Sorry, kick up our war pick to +4. Let's do a little goofing around with old Blacksmith Andre here. In addition to the upgrades, I think now that we've got that Sage's Coal, I was checking out some of the different infusion paths. I wanted to see how big of a hit my base damage would take if I went Blessed. Even though I don't have any Blessed gems, it still lets you see what your weapon would look like if you went down the Blessed path. We'll do some leveling up as well. I'm kind of distracted because now I'm thinking about these Order of Knights, these Fallen Knights. Who are those guys? What orders of knights have we seen in the past? From Dark Souls 1, you had the Balder Knights. Definitely not them. We had the Baronite Knights. That was Black Iron Tarkus. We had the Silver Knights from Gwyn, who became the Black Knights. In Dark Souls 2, you had the Lion Knights. You had the Elan Knights. Doesn't really look like them. I don't know. You had the Drakeblood Knights in the DLC. Could it be the Drakeblood Knights, maybe? They definitely came to an untimely end, led by Jorg trying to hunt down Sin, the slumbering dragon. I don't remember their armor looking like that, though. I don't know. Do some talisman switcheroo here, too, via some bad inventory management. No, I'm just kind of looking at the different spell buffs for each of those. And I'm going to throw off some... There we go. That nice little glow that he gets. That's the weapon art in effect. That is what increases your poise. There's the difference. There's a regular one. There's a poise-enhanced one. So that'll be kind of nice. I'm kind of curious to see how that plays out, especially when we go out into PvP with some of our Blue Sentinel / Blade of the Dark Moon in reverse invasions. Can't really call those invasions. But yeah, that Canvas Talisman, that is a keeper. With less than 50 faith, that is going to be the one that puts out the best numbers for offensive miracles. There's a couple of exceptions. Some of the dark stuff scales better with other equipment, but across the board, for the most part, Canvas Talisman is what we're going to rock for a while. And that'll do it. I know this was kind of a setup episode, a boilerplate episode in a character building series, but we finally have some deviant paths that we can take. So I wanted to snag some goodies. In the next one, we'll head for the Cathedral. We'll clear that out. And as always, let me know, what did I do wrong? What do you do differently? What did I miss? And as we are 4 episodes deep in this thing, just wanted to say thanks to everybody that's checking this thing out, participating, leaving comments, greatly appreciated. And I'll see you in the next one.